Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, today I want to talk to you about flaws. Robert the Narrator, uh, who has the Confessions of a Frustrated Game Master channel, has a great video called Flaws, Flaws, Flaws. And to be honest with you, all of his videos are pretty darn good. I've been enjoying his channel an awful lot, and I identify a lot with what he talks about. In his terms of his frustrations and a whole bunch of other stuff, his tastes. So, he mentioned in his video about players that don't want to have a character that has any sort of flaws at all, and then enjoying when somebody plays a character that does have some kind of flaws, and liking to play a character like that himself. So I figured I'd make a little chime in, me too, bitty response, because I can't, I think I mentioned in a comment back to him on his YouTube video, I can't remember having any characters that didn't have flaws. Maybe some in the very beginning, and I couldn't really tell you too much about them, to be honest with you. But I've always liked to play a character that has something, some kind of shortcoming. And let's be honest, the first shortcomings you're gonna encounter in a character right off the bat are going to be some kind of mechanical shortcomings based on character creation. Maybe you roll dice, and it turns out that some of their abilities or attributes or stats or whatever game you have, you know, aren't all that great. So they already come preloaded with a flaw mechanically. Um, and maybe you do point buy. Maybe you're some kind of min maxer. Not that I'm advocating that, really not. Um, and so you end up with you want an ability that's powerful, but you have to take a penalty, and that means you have to have an ability that's not so powerful and below average when it comes right down to it. And in that case, you've got a character that has some sort of flaw, and this is just a mechanical flaw. However, in my mind, and I'll go off on a little tangent, that ought to come up during play. If you choose to have a character that's you want to boost some attributes at the cost of intelligence, well, they ought to be kind of stupid, and this ought to get them into some kind of trouble. And if they have a really low constitution, maybe they ought to be getting tired, maybe they just can't keep up with the rest of the people that they're adventuring with, or investigating with, or whatever kind of game you're running. And I can already hear from some people, well, that's not mechanically supported by the rules in my game, so that would be just like Game Master fiat. Well, you know, let's be, I don't want to say fair, that's not the right word, but otherwise it's just a number on a piece of paper. And I don't want it to be like Game Master fiat, or that call, although that's okay too. If I play with the Game Masters, hey, by the way, you're getting tired because you just don't have any kind of constitution or whatever the stat is that represents that. But at the same time, I'd much rather be the player, or have the player that takes it upon themselves to role play their character in a manner where they recognize that mechanical flaw their character has, and plays them that way. That to me is a lot more fun. Because I don't like to, I'm not a fan of the type of gaming where you just want this ultra powerful character that's larger than life, and no matter what happens, they gloss over it. So that's one type of flaw. There's the other type of flaw, that something like all the Ubiquity powered games, they have flaws mechanically built in. You have to take a flaw in character creation, and it's to your advantage to take a flaw because you can get style points whenever you act that flaw out. And these flaws range from things like physical flaws, to let's see, maybe you have one arm, maybe you're elderly, maybe you're deaf or very hard of hearing. Maybe it's mental flaw where you're absent-minded, you have amnesia, you're intolerant, callous, condescending. I wouldn't know anything about those. A pacifist. Something where your attitude is going to get you into some kind of trouble. Maybe you're a danger magnet. They have miscellaneous flaws in here. You're unlucky. Great stuff like that. And those are all kind of entertaining, and I've had just, one session of experience with that, but that was a lot of fun, playing up to those flaws. But not only does it have a mechanical advantage in that game, but also, it makes the characters more real. But beyond all that, beyond any kind of mechanical thing, I've always enjoyed playing a character that has some kind of quirk. I think when we talk about flaws, we're talking about giving a character a personality. At least that's, how I see, or what my experience has been. If my character has any sort of personality at all, well, this is representative of some kind of flaw, some kind of, or maybe not a flaw, maybe not the right word, but some kind of peaks and valleys in their personality. Where some they have some shortcomings, they have some assets, and this kind of shapes the person they are and how they react to certain situations. And so they may react a different way than the guy next to him does, or whomever. Maybe they react differently than the normal person. Maybe they're just over the top. Maybe they're like a paladin. Just the first example that came to mind, where they're a crusader. That can be a flaw sometimes. Maybe they are a little bit more like the roguish type. Seeing as I'm going to use D&D, terms. Where they're just not the nicest person, where their ethics are questionable. I find those kind of characters much more interesting. And I made a couple of videos recently about where you have this war in your head. Maybe at least I do sometimes, between what would be the mechanically advantageous thing to do, or what would be the tactically advantageous thing to do, versus what would my character do. So yeah, if they are have a little bit more of a, I think the example I used, if they're a little bit impulsive and emotional, maybe they would just go charging into danger if they felt that somebody was that they knew was going to be in trouble, and even though it would be a bad idea technically, they might just go do that. That to me makes the characters a lot more real. That's when you're, I guess to me, that's when you're role playing, and to a certain extent, when you're role playing, you're expressing the flaws that your character has. Flaws aren't necessarily bad; they just make a character human. Unless you're playing an elf, but it still makes you human. You get what I'm talking about. So yeah, I can't imagine. To me, it wouldn't be fun to play a character without a flaw. Maybe you think of it differently, but even in the the example I was given just yesterday when I was talking about my experience playing Desolation for the first time, and I talked at the very end of the video, if you made it that far, about some of the takeaways and the epiphanies I've sort of had about my gaming style, is that part of that playing characters that explore their own desires and their own schemes in the world and whatnot. These characters have a personality. You're not just kind of walking around kind of being a murder hobo, or just rolling some dice, or being this uber powerful superhero that where you're almost playing a video game. You're playing a real, honest to goodness, fictional, pretend, but a real, honest to goodness person. Warts and all. So yeah, I enjoy playing a character with flaws. I really don't have a good time if they don't have some quirks. And I like the guy sitting next to me, or across the screen from me, to play his character with some quirks too. So what about you? What do you think? What has your experience been? What are your preferences? Tell me about it.